Hi, my name is Troy, and if you're watching this video, I can only assume it's because you're already aware of Professor Geek and his YouTube channel. Otherwise, I can't even really imagine why you'd be here watching this video. But in any event, just in case you're the one person who just happened on this video and doesn't know who Professor Geek is, of course, I will link to his YouTube channel below. I recommend you go check him out, like, subscribe, do all the things because, well, you'll thank me later. He's a real professor of literature, and he generally puts out content specifically related to mythology and archetypes and stories, whether that's the mythology of ancient civilizations or the modern mythology of comics and television and films. And like myself, he generally takes a pretty critical stance on this modern trend of writers to intentionally subvert expectations and to deconstruct the classic stories in order to shoehorn them into some modern narrative and agenda-driven propaganda. And that's usually invariably to the detriment of the classic stories. I happen to think, and I think that Professor Geek would agree with me, that warping those classic tales to fit trendy, faddish, agenda-driven narratives results in a kind of dated propaganda that in the future I think will be looked back upon, kind of the way we look back at those weird coronet videos of the 1950s. There's something sacred about mythology, and that deserves to be honored and protected. Now, that being said, this video is a response to a recent video of Professor Geek's called Mythology and History, and I'll definitely link to that one somewhere, because you do need to go and check out that video in order for any of this to make any sense and be in any kind of context. And I would encourage you not only to watch it, but hit like I did, even though I'm about to disagree with it and be critical of it. It's definitely worth supporting. So I'm assuming you've seen it. You've stopped this video, you've gone back and watched it, and you've come back, because otherwise, what's the point? Anyway, early on, the professor gets kind of derogatory of historians who are, as he puts it, quick, so very quick, to point out when fictionalized retellings of historical events are inaccurate. Specifically, he says that he feels that, and I want to get this correct, far too often the stories are disregarded in preference for the history. And he thinks that that's a real mistake and that something's truly lost there. I see where he's coming from. I don't entirely disagree with it. Mythology is important, and I agree with that. Mythology based on fictional accounts of real historic events, however, start out as a subversion of facts until they supplant and replace those facts. The real mistake and what's truly lost is the truth. Now, in fairness to the professor, he did express that history is important, and we should separate history and the fictionalized stories. But I don't think that's what really happens. In practice, what has happened is these legendary tales have supplanted the actual facts of history, requiring people who care about history to then say, well, just to be fair, this is not what really happened. Don't deride that. That needs to happen. People need to be educated. They need to know what really did happen. In the hierarchy of things, yes, mythology is very important. It is something that binds our civilization together. But on a higher level is the facts, is true history. That also binds our civilization together. If we can get behind that, it's so important that Santayana is often quoted. And I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact quote, but those who don't remember history are doomed to repeat it. And I think that fictionalizing history in a legendary way and obscuring the facts is one way of not remembering history. The story of Pocahontas that Professor Geek specifically cites is a perfect example. Most people know the fiction and don't know the history. And that fiction is reinforced by Disney and its Blue Corn Moose, or whatever those songs are. It's this story of a romance that never existed, never could have existed. And it unfortunately means that so few people know the truly tragic story and the sacrifices made by the real world Native American girl who was kidnapped and suffered with Stockholm Syndrome and died in a land far from her home. Okay? Yeah, I'm sorry to be a downer, but those are the realities. And the real story is far, I'm not going to say far more interesting, but is a wonderful story in and of itself. History does not need to be embellished to be good story. You don't have to look any farther than Gettysburg or Gods and Generals. Those films were incredibly historically accurate. The lines that seem like they were created by Hollywood scriptwriters were actual quotes from the journals of the historic characters. Yeah, I mean, there isn't enough of those stories being told. And in a way, I feel like when Professor Geek, in his derision of people defending history's historical accuracy, in a way it's analogous to the Snyderbots who deride fans of the iconic Superman. Yes, Professor Geek, I'm comparing you to the Snyderbots. I think that just because you like something new doesn't make it better. Newer isn't always better, as Barney on How I Met Your Mother, had argued. History deserves to be preserved. It deserves to be known and should not be supplanted by deconstruction and whitewashing of history. It makes it very difficult, if not impossible, to have any truly rational and intellectual discussion about history and where we think our civilization should be going to. It leads to the arguments of, whether or not the early settlers really engaged in some sort of organized genocide of the Native Americans with smallpox blankets. Okay? What are the facts? We don't even know anymore. We can't separate the facts from the propaganda anymore. In many cases, fallacies and fictions are taught as fact in our grade schools, leading to terrible misconceptions about our history. And I think very much to the detriment of our society. So yeah, I hope that this video has not come off as too heavy-handed and critical of Professor Geek. It does seem antithetical to what I said in the beginning, that you should go and like and subscribe, because this is one video out of all of his body of content that I found something to disagree with. And I think that even Professor Geek, if he were to go back and rewatch his own video and take into consideration the things that I've said here, I think he might agree. Maybe, I think. Maybe he was a little unfair to historians. Maybe the comparison to the Snyder bots might sting a little bit, but maybe it's something we can talk about, Professor Geek. Have me on your channel again. Maybe we can talk about it for some other rewatch of a historical film. But yep, there it is, and I'm putting it out there as is. So thank you if you've made it this far through my inaugural video on my channel. What's wrong with you? No, but thank you, seriously. I will be putting out more content in the future, probably like this. Some of it, may be critical of YouTubers that I really admire. But hopefully more of it, hey, go check this out. I liked it. I think they missed a point. I want to build on it. I'm going to be opinionated. I'm going to say what's on my mind, because that's really what this channel is about. Like and subscribe if you should want to, but if you don't, I don't care. I'm doing this for me because I enjoy it. I will be beginning to put content on my sister channel, the Klingon Cleric. It will be more focused on Star Trek content, specifically from the point of view of the Klingons. It will be less opinionated and more in-universe, kind of indirectly talking about matters of canon. It'll be a thing in the future. Don't worry about it. You can check it out. I'll tell you about it if you're still hanging around here and I actually get some content out there. And I'm talking about I'm gonna link to some of my favorite YouTubers down below, but I don't know how I'm going to do that because I don't know anything about this YouTube-y type stuff. Yeah, that's what I'm doing here. I'm kind of figuring out how all this works and practicing with the new camera, and it should get better from here. You didn't like this video, maybe wait a couple months, see what I put out later on. But anyway, thank you for getting this far. If you have, go like and subscribe to Professor Geek. My friend Big Al Presents that I mentioned earlier, and I don't think I mentioned the Fan Man, who I should give a shout out to as well. He often talks about fan addicts who, like the Snyder bots, will love anything because it's got a particular logo stamped on it. And I think that concept directly applies, I think, here to my video today, of people who want to defend something in favor of something else, kind of as a knee-jerk reaction. So I'm going to link to all of them below. They're much more worthy of your subscriptions and your likes than I think I am. But thanks anyway. Take care. Have a great one.